this is Jack Wallen, and I'm doing a test of some changes I made on my camera. And instead of actually just filming a video, I'm going to read about 15 minutes of Violent Delight's Deadly Romance, which is the first book in the series. I'm going to set a 15-minute timer so that it will go off at 15 minutes. The reason why I'm doing this is simply because audio has fallen out of sync with my camera. I don't have my lights or anything, and I don't even know if I'm going to use this. I may not publish this, who knows. But I thought this would be a great idea, and if it does look and sound good, I can go ahead and publish it on the YouTubes, and you can hear me read the first few pages of Violent Delight's Deadly Romance. Here we go. You ready? Aaron Kennedy was born on the right side of the tracks. He grew up with loving parents in Concord, a suburb of Boston. His father, a lawyer. His mother, a surgeon. He had an unlimited ceiling, charm that could woo the pants off anyone he pleased, and looks that could shame a Calvin Klein model into giving up the catwalk. His parents doted over him from birth, showering him with every gift, including every whim. Indulging every whim. Aaron was, of course, class president, valedictorian, captain of the polo team, and had been granted early acceptance to Harvard Medical, a legacy on a full ride. Life was a golden ring on a carousel that dangled in front of him within easy reach. He sailed through university with a 4.0, graduated summa cum laude with an MD and a license to practice psychiatry. His parents sat in the front row of the commencement, smugly. It's hard to read because this first page has got an image on it. His parents sat in the front row of commencement, smugly beaming with pride as Aaron strolled across the stage, soaking up the standing ovation from his peers and the professors who had the privilege of teaching him. Now we have White. His father had already purchased a building for his son's practice. Before switching on the lights for his first session, his calendar was booked solid a year out. But something wasn't right with Aaron. Growing up, he brushed aside the subtle stirrings of his heart, labeling them boredom, blaming his young hormones. He quickly learned to hide his less than genteel inclinations from family and society, anxious not to tarnish the image of golden boy. In fact, even before he could rationalize those ideations, he understood which of his thoughts could never be shared. Those who cared for Aaron shrugged off his odd behavior as shyness or introversion. Mom and Dad assumed he'd grow out of it. Just a phase. Turned into, he's a quiet boy. Turned into, most highly intelligent people are peculiar. Little did they know. Little did he know. Those strange boyish penchants blossomed into something dark, pitch. Let me try that again. Those strange boyish penchants, let's just say penchants because I'm not French, and this isn't Little did he know, those strange boyish penchants blossomed into something dark, pitch, in fact. What began as mere mental curiosities, wondering what it felt like to crush someone's skull with a hammer or push a nun into oncoming traffic, grew into a calling, one that would change the course of his life and paint it in shades of death. Aaron spent weeks studying her patterns. I have a typo here. That should be his patterns. Aaron spent weeks studying his patterns, memorizing. No. I am correct because it has been a long time since I wrote this. So I'm not incorrect. Aaron spent weeks studying her patterns, memorizing her comings and goings, her destinations, her routines. He didn't know her name. He avoided that sort of intimacy, preferring anonymity. The very thought of knowing whom his victims were made him sick. The only information he collected centered around their habits. He didn't have a type, a motive, or a justification. He didn't select his victims from his clientele or from a list of those whom he deemed deserving. It was random chance. There was no voice in his head insisted he followed some creed. There was no manifesto, and, as a doctor, he concluded no sickness. It was just Aaron. He'd be shopping, and someone would catch his eye. At the gym, a movie, eating dinner. It didn't matter. Someone would tickle his fancy, and the die was cast. Serendipity. The day was Tuesday, which had absolutely no significance to him. It was just a day and nothing more. He sat in his Tesla, watching her leave for work. She was in a modest dress, wearing heels she'd probably purchased at Target, or he probably purchased it at Target. No, it's a she. Along with a knockoff purse and a string of fake pearls around her average neck. Again, none of that mattered. The only significant thing about her was her purse. I am painting Aaron Kennedy in shades that he is not. Again, none of that mattered. The only significant thing about her was her pulse. The only directive, making it stop. If it were her purse, his only directive might have been to steal it so he could wear it. No, that's not the case. I digress. She closed the door of her Prius, backed up, and drove off. 10 minutes ticked off the clock. It was always 10 minutes. 5 minutes and they might return, perhaps having realized they'd left something critical for their day. Lunch, a thermos, papers, their will to live. 10 minutes was the sweet spot. Aaron exited his car, grabbed his backpack from the trunk, gave it a quick look up and down. I can't read right now. Aaron exited his car, grabbed his backpack from the trunk, gave a quick look up and down the neighborhood, and made his way to her driveway. It took him a week of watching to figure out the best way to enter her house. She'd frequently left a back window open, and he was in perfect shape to climb up and through. Fortunately, the backyard was surrounded by trees, so no one would be the wiser. He'd thought of everything. Whoever said there was no such thing as the perfect crime had never come across the likes of Aaron Kennedy. Inside, the house smelled of incense and tea. The aesthetic of the home was a mixture of bohemian Buddhism and a dash of brutalism. It was an odd melange of styles, but it worked. He felt immediately welcome. Upon entry, Aaron liked to make his way casually through every room, taking in the arrangement, deepening his understanding of his victims, analyzing them. He grabbed a drink from the fridge, a snack from the cupboard, rummaged through drawers, sniffed lingerie, stripped naked, and slip under the covers to experience what it was like to be that person. On the occasion he was feeling a bit randy, he even dared to don the clothing of his mark. He had his own kinks, which further inflamed his passion, and every now and then he'd indulge. This time, however, he decided to refrain. Given her financial status, her wardrobe was a bit below his refined taste, so there was no dressing up today. Instead, Aaron slipped into the closet to wait for 5:45 to roll around. As he sat in the darkness, he considered the tool he'd use for tonight's deed. When he'd first begun his extracurricular activities, his preferences veered toward the theatrical. He'd tie his victims into intricate poses, toy with them a bit, and maybe offer a speech about the futility of life and the beauty of death before freeing them from their mortal coil. As the show grew into spectacle, he eventually considered the risk involved, which led him to realize that simplicity was not only the safer route, but also the more elegant. He'd shrugged off his juvenile craving for dramatic flair, as truly the only thing of importance was watching the life drain from his victim's eyes. That was the very key to his ascension from banality. In death, he found life, and that was enough to mollify his dark desires. How much time do I have left here? 6 minutes and 48 seconds. Good gravy. He set an alarm on his watch for 5:30, arranged the contents of the cramped closet so he could sit, closed his eyes, and drifted off. The chime of his watch was loud enough to wake, but not startle him. He'd learned long ago that even the slightest rush of adrenaline could throw a wrench into the works of his deeds. 15 minutes. The 2 words sent tickling chills across his flesh. It was his countdown that fueled him with the necessary fire to close. He'd chosen his tool for tonight's adventure. He tapped on his phone's flashlight, slowly unzipped his backpack, and extracted the knife with the pearl handle. The tightness of his nitrile gloves gave him an odd comfort and a secure grip. The song of the knife sang as it slipped from its sheath was a perfect overture for the soundtrack that would soon follow. Aaron stood in the closet, knife in hand. It was only a matter of minutes before she'd arrive home, venture into her bedroom, remove her shoes, her stockings, slip out of her plain dress, open the closet, and hang it alongside the rest of her pedestrian wardrobe of polyblends that were right at home attending a church picnic or an accounting convention. Breathe. He used his own teachings to keep his heart rate at a resting pace. 45 beats per minute. Perfect for such an activity. That level of relaxation was necessary to fully enjoy what was about to happen. The front door opened. Heels clicked against the hardwood floor. Keys clinked, dropped into a ceramic bowl. Fridge opened. A bottle, maybe wine to soothe the nerves, unwind from a stress-filled day at work. More footsteps, drawing near. A glass against wood. The sliding of shoes from feet. A zipper. A sigh. The door to the closet opened to reveal her, standing in a mismatched bra and panties. Her figure was considerably more beautiful than he'd assumed. Nice curves, shapely breasts, well-defined legs. Upon realizing a stranger stood before her with a knife, she dropped the dress, drew in a deep breath to scream, and felt the tip of the knife as the blade plunged deep into the pit of her gut. Shock. He removed the knife and sank it in her chest, through a lung. She gasped. Another stab through the other lung. Breath became impossible. She dropped. He lowered himself to the floor and cradled her head in his hands so he could stare deeply into her eyes as the life slowly ebbed. Her chest heaved and frothy blood bubbled from her mouth. It was at this point the experience sickened him. Once life had ceased and the body started to cool, Aaron Kennedy had to turn away. Otherwise, the depravity of the act would fill him with shame. It was the same sensation he felt after indulging himself in baser acts of sex. He'd had women beg him to choke them, come over their faces, bind them, humiliate them, and he was always willing to oblige. Afterwards, a sense of repulsion would settle over his heart, turn his stomach, and he'd escape into his mind, searching out some shred of morality within which to hide. With the act of violent congress finished, he made his exit quick and silent. He never bothered to clean. He preferred leaving behind a gruesome scene for the police and media to comb through. The bloodier, the better. And given how careful he was with every step of the procedure, there was never any concern he'd leave behind a telltale sign that might lead a detective to his door. Reading of the event the morning after with coffee would be the perfect denouement. With pack in hand, he made his exit through her back door, leaving it open to misguide the men and women in blue. They'd assumed the offender was someone familiar to the victim, a vicious ex-boyfriend, an estranged family member, or even a bad neighbor. Outside, the sun had set just enough to give him a measure of cover to slip away without being seen. Back in his car, Aaron closed his eyes and took a minute to relish the memory, to relive the moment her heart came to rest in its bony cage. Satisfied, he started the Tesla and drove silently into the darkening night. How much longer do I have now? It's not telling me. 2 minutes and 31 seconds. So that was the first chapter of Violent Delights, Deadly Romance, on sale now on Amazon.com or from jackwallen.com, where you can get an autographed copy of this baby. It's beautiful, isn't it? Here, I'll read you the description. Love, it transcends time, borders, culture, and generations. When the bonds of love are forged for the right people, a world of wonder is laid out before them. Love makes people better. But when love binds two of society's worst, the drama that ensues can be tragic. Such is the case when Camille St. Jude enters the world of psychiatrist Aaron Kennedy. Apart, they've murdered countless victims. They have something in common, an insatiable lust followed by a good slaughter. Once they fall in love, their murderous rampage threatens to bring the city of Boston to its knees. Love makes people careless. Enter Anton Frank and Jean Barber, one of Boston's finest, and a transplant inspector from London, charged with bringing this murderous match made in hell to justice. As they work the case, Cupid's arrow sends a clear message to them both. It's a tale of lust versus love, murder versus morality. 1 minute and 20 seconds left. By Jack Wallen. So hopefully the sound is still in sync. Hope maybe this looks good enough, and if it does, I'll publish it. I don't know. There's no lighting. It's probably a bad setting. This is in our, I don't know what you, this is the front room of our house, our beautiful little house. Not little, really. It's nice size. We've lived here for 5 years. I love it. My wife loves it very much, actually. And this is probably our forever home, unless something happens and something calls me to Los Angeles. Who knows? We'll see. Only the shadow knows what is in the hearts of man. I'm going to go the distance here. I've got 40 seconds. And then, but you know me, I can blather on and on and on and on and on about just anything. Just give me a topic and I will talk about it. Back when I was a hairstylist, yes, I was a hairstylist for about 3 years. That was one of the things my clients loved about me, is that I could talk about anything. They would throw out a topic and I'd just go on and on and on, and we would have a conversation. It was a wonderful thing. And there is now only how many seconds left? 13 whole seconds left of me. Okay, so if this video was actually good enough for me to publish, I'm going to say, as I usually do, thank you so much for giving me a moment of your time and listening to me read the first chapter of Violent Delight's Deadly Romance. Our time is up. If you liked what you just read, please subscribe to this channel. I might come back someday and read a little bit more from this ditty, or if you have a request, I'll read something from one of my other books. Isn't that awesome? Thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.